Hey, what's up guys? My name is Samuel Leeds. I'm a property investor, and on this YouTube channel, my mission, my goal is to help make as many people become financially free and successful as possible in property. Now, often what happens is I'll make a video and then I'll get lots of niggly questions, detailed questions around tax, due diligence, and I like to every Sunday answer those questions from my followers. So on this week's video, I'm going to be answering some of those questions. However, if you're watching this right now, what I want you to do is I want you to ask me by commenting below. Ask me your property problems, questions, the little niggles, the things that you always think, I wish I knew the answer to this. Anything around property, money, finance, mortgages, tax, comment below and I will do my best to answer based on my experience as a property investor. So let's have a look at some of the questions we had from last week. And as you're listening, start commenting, typing below, and I'll be doing another video next week answering your questions as well. So what we got? James Rumsey says, how do you estimate HMO utility costs? Gas, electric, water, council tax, and Wi-Fi, etc. How much does this affect your return on investment? So it of course affects your return on investment. So a HMO property, for anyone that doesn't know, is a house on multiple occupancy. So it's when you buy a house, rather than just renting it out to a family, you rent it out room by room, which massively pushes up your rent. However, when you do that, usually what I recommend doing is you pay for the utility bills, you pay for the council tax. That way it makes it easy for the tenant to move in, it makes it easy for the tenant, it's convenience, and in 2020, convenience sells. So how much should you budget for those utility costs? So it does vary a little bit depending on the house. So if it's a new build or if it's a really old house, it will vary. But typically speaking, I usually budget around about £350 for a 4-bed HMO. And then as you go up by the rooms, if it's a 5-bed, I'll go up £50. And then if it's a 6-bed, I'll go up £50. So it might be £450 for a 6-bed HMO. Now that is a rule of thumb. That's not an absolute definite. I use a company called Utility Warehouse for my utility bills. I'm not affiliated with them. I was a distributor like 10 years ago, but now what I do is I find distributors for Utility Warehouse. I give them all my properties, I give them my houses, and then the distributors kind of like feel like they owe me a favor. So they might make £5 a month commission from my property, but then because they kind of feel like they owe me a little bit of a favor, they'll then pass me property deals, which might make me £100,000. So it's kind of a win-win for me, but they're a good company. Another thing I'll say on HMOs, generally speaking, is sometimes you can look at a property and you can be like, oh my gosh, I'll rent it out, 6 bedrooms, £400 a room, I'm gonna make like £2,500 a month rent. But the thing is, half of that rent is going to go towards expenses. So you're going to have interest payments on your mortgage, gas, electric, management. Half, generally speaking, rule of thumb, half of the rent is going to go on expenses, and then half is going to be left as pre-tax profit. So that's again a rule of thumb. I hope that helped, James. Any more questions on HMOs, just drop a comment below in this video. Baron Taz, how do you lower the amount of taxes you pay in property? Great question. How do you lower taxes? Okay, first thing I'll say is this. Don't let the tail wag the dog. So right now, your number one priority is to make money. And then when you make money, it's then a case of, okay, now how do I save money? How do I pay as little tax as possible? So how do you do that? I mean, the most obvious way is to just reduce your profits. So everything that you buy, you need to be really good at knowing, can you put it on the business or can you not? This t-shirt, okay, that I'm wearing right now, this is not an expensive t-shirt. Sometimes people say to me, Samuel, you know, why do you wear that top from Next or whatever that's £15? Like, I thought you were supposed to be a property multi-millionaire. And my answer is, well, firstly, why wouldn't I wear the top? You know, what's the issue? But secondly, because this top is not tax deductible. I'm not gonna spend a lot of money on stuff that's not tax deductible. So I'm always thinking, you know, what can I claim as an expense? That's why now when I buy properties, I buy them through a limited company, because that means that my mortgage payments, the interest payments, are tax deductible because I'm buying it through a company. If you buy it as an individual, it's not. So I'm always thinking, how can I, stamp duty tax, how do you save stamp duty tax? you can instead of buy, if there's a property owned in a company, instead of buying the property, you can buy the company that owns the property, and then whoosh, your stamp duty tax goes down almost to zero. When you go on a course, so for people that go on my training programs, even if it's a free course, even if they come on the crash course, which is a free 2-day program, the hotel bill, so when they're sleeping over, the hotel bill and then the evening dinner, as long as you can demonstrate that I was staying at this hotel because I was learning about property, that is tax deductible, which means that then when you make your big fat profit, you can say, I got my big fat profit, but I had this expense and this expense and this expense. So knowing what you can class as an expense and what is not an expense is a really important skill to reduce your tax. So that's just a few things, but the most important thing is to make money. I don't think you pay any tax at all. When you start off as a property entrepreneur, you don't pay any tax on the first £11,000, I think. Always check out all this stuff with an accountant because I'm not qualified to give tax advice. I can only speak from my experience. First £11,000, you don't pay any tax, and then there's a sliding scale. So as you get wealthier and wealthier, you pay more and more tax, which is why you're then gonna look for more and more expenses. So that was the thing Grant Cardone said to me. He was like, dude, you need more expenses. You're almost making too much profit, and when you have too much profit, that's not actually a good thing because then you're gonna have to pay lots of tax. So how can you invest that money, that profit, into stuff that's gonna grow your business? So there's just a few thoughts anyway. I mean, I could literally run a whole seminar on tax because it's something that I'm very interested in. It's something that when you make a lot of money, you do want to save it, but I wouldn't get super hung up about it unless you're making lots of money. That should always be the priority. Hope that helps. Thank you for your question, Baron. Okay, Gonzala Z. We're looking for rent to SA deals. Do I look for furnished apartments or unfurnished and furnish them myself? Either, whatever makes the best return on investment. You always just need to factor in costs. So if you've got an apartment and it's not furnished, just make sure that when you're working out the return on investment, you include either leasing the furniture, so you knock off the monthly expense, or you include in the return on investment having to shell out money on furniture. Whatever gives you the best return on investment is the best deal. Sometimes I've had to furnish properties or lease furniture, but I've got such a good deal on it, the return on investment's still really good. Other times, like, it just really does depend. Either is fine, and if you're gonna pay for furniture, then you're gonna spend a lot of money on any kind of rent-to-rent deal or a lease option agreement. Just make sure that you have got the agreement drawn up properly with the landlord, because the last thing you want to do is start shelling out on buying expensive furniture in a property, and then the landlord goes, actually, you know what? I'll just rent this out myself, and then you've spent all this money. So just make sure that you've got the correct paperwork to protect you if you do those kinds of deals. Stevie Ball, how many properties did you have at the end of the first year? At the end of the first year, I don't know quite what that means. Does that mean the first year of me being born? Or does that mean, I don't know what that means. If you mean when I started out in property, so when I started out in property, after 12 months of me starting, I had one deal, I had one house. You know what, it took me 4 years to become financially free, and knowing what I know now, if I started all over again, which I have done many times with my financial freedom challenges, what I achieved in 4 years, I could very easily achieve in 4 months now, maybe even 4 weeks, because your first deal is always your hardest. Once you've done your first deal, then you're just gonna duplicate and then duplicate, and it gets easier and easier, just like anything, like learning to drive. So I hope that was what you wanted to know, Stevie Ball. One property after my first year of investing in property. Okay, DR Cam. Hey Samuel, another great video, thank you. I've just secured 2 rent-to-serviced accommodation properties, all thanks to your videos. Woo! Good job, that's brilliant. I've also booked onto the next crash course next week. Dude, amazing. I'll be there next week as well, so I'll see you there. Just wondering if you could advise before I start. Question, with such a high turnover with rent-to-serviced accommodation, what's the best way to cover myself and the landlord for potential damage done to the property by the temporary guest? So to protect yourself against guests damaging the property, deposits. Just make sure you have a deposit from the guest. But dude, we can cover that all at the crash course. You're going to be there next week anyway. Congrats on your 2 deals. That's insane. I'm glad that you're going to be at the crash course next week, so you do it right. Because there are people taking massive action is fantastic, but you also need to take massive action with also knowledge. And I do see people doing rent to rents and they do it wrong and they get burned. So really glad you're going to be there next week. Boom, I'll see you there. Okay, Ethan Carroll Galligan says, loving your free information. Thank you for taking the time. Dude, you're welcome. It's my pleasure. Do you think how you present yourself is a key factor when securing a property or management companies, etc., on a face-to-face basis? Presenting yourself, yeah, Ethan, presenting yourself is really important. At the end of the day, money does not come from property. Money comes from people. Because if you think about it, you buy a house, that house isn't going to give you any money. What's going to give you the money is the tenant that moves into the house. The tenant's going to give you money because of the property. When the house goes up in value and you want to sell it maybe, the house doesn't sell itself. Someone has to buy the house, and someone has to buy the house based on what they think it's worth. So if money comes from people and not property, then being able to communicate and articulate yourself and present yourself properly, professionally, in a way that's likable, trustworthy, is really, really important. So, and I see some people, this is where they fall down. So they study all the theory and they might know loads about property. You could know as much about me in property, but then if you haven't got the ability to speak to people, and I'm not talking about being a charismatic presenter, okay? Maybe you won't speak like I speak, not saying I'm a charismatic presenter, but maybe you won't speak like I speak, but just being able to be you in your way, but to be able to carry yourself properly and use the right language when you're speaking to people. Because language is really important, the right phrases, all that kind of stuff. It's really, really important. So, you know, work on that as well. Work on your personal development. Work on growing yourself and your people skills and your negotiation skills, as well as your property skills. 100%, 100%. And we do some of that at the crash course as well. The crash course is both the Property Investors Crash Course, by the way, which is a 2-day course that I created. It's now served thousands and thousands of people all across the world. And we work on the property side, knowing how to work out the figures and find a deal, but also how to speak to the agent, how to negotiate with the seller, how to find the tenant, how to put the power team together. So the two are really, really important. Okay, last question. I hope you guys are enjoying this. If you're enjoying this video, please don't forget to smash that like button. And if you're watching this and you're not subscribed to the channel, then please subscribe right now. All right, one more. KD Man Jr. Hey Sam, your great videos, love them, thank you. Can you please confirm your understanding of multiple dwelling relief when you are purchasing a property that has been converted into separate flats with their own entrance, kitchen, bathrooms, etc.? We're buying a property with 5 flats. Does this mean we divide, I think that's supposed to say, the cost of stamp duty into 5 due to the number of flats? And if that means they are below a specific threshold, then we pay less stamp duty. Any support advice would be appreciated. Great question. Listen, it's quite a big subject, stamp duty, and how you work it out. But yes, 100%. I've got experience with this when I've bought properties that have been, like even when I bought the castle. In fact, when I bought the castle, I was quoted by my solicitor, I think it was £86,000 in stamp duty, and I was like, oh my goodness. And I said, but the castle is actually already got planning permission to be multiple apartments, multiple houses. Why am I paying so much stamp duty? And I looked into it and they were like, no, you've got to pay it. And I was just thinking, this doesn't seem right. And I was researching it online, and I was, in fact, if you can even go to, let me look at the website. If you go to gov.uk guidance/stamp duty land tax relief, okay, bit of a mouthful, just Google it. If you Google it, you can get a lot of information about stamp duty, how it works. It might be confusing, so you want to find a solicitor that can explain it in plain English, knows the crack, because I tell you something, when you overpay stamp duty, the HMRC aren't going to come after you and say, you know what, you actually overpaid. You paid £86,000 when you could have paid £8,000. Let me give you the £78,000 back. That's not how it works. You need to put the claim in and yourself with your solicitor when you buy the house. So with the castle, it came down to £8,000. I changed the solicitor and I got it down to £8,000, which is just insane because I've got multiple dwelling relief. So I might do a whole video about that and how it works. You can Google it. But right now, I think we're going to wrap up because I've been going on quite a while. But listen, if you've got more questions, and that stamp duty thing, I'm gonna do a whole new, separate video about that in its own right, because I think it's a big subject. But if you've got more questions and you want me to answer you, comment them below. If you want to come to the Property Investors Crash Course, you can get yourself booked on for free. It's an incredible 2-day program, and you can get booked on right here If you want to see me becoming financially free all again from scratch, you can do that right here. And please don't forget to subscribe down over here. Thanks so much, guys. I'll see you next time.